I lied. We've done one show already, and I've already lied to you. Not in any kind of negative way. No malicious intent. No negative intent on our part. But if you'll recall, last week on the show, I said we'd be back August 6th, and here we are on a Wednesday night, July 30th, and you and I are sitting down talking high school football once again in the Ohio Valley. The reason that we will be doing weekly shows from here until the end of football season is, frankly, at least here before the season, there's too many things to talk about. There's too many people to talk to. We've got some great conversations lined up. We've got some great stories lined up. We've got shows on not only tonight, but August 6th, August 13th, and before you know it, August 20th, we'll be talking about Week 1 games in Ohio on the west side of the river. And we couldn't be more thrilled or more glad that the football season is approaching fast, and it couldn't come any quicker. Once again, it's Wednesday, July 30th. I'm your host, Drake Watson. This is Hometown Huddle. Cue the guitars. We've got a lot to talk about.
All the way to the house, and it's going to be a St. Clairsville touchdown. First play of the game. Hello, touchdown Huskies. Wide open, touchdown Ohio Valley.
I wanted to talk to you on tonight's show a little bit about the OHSAA playoff format changing. In Ohio, no longer will there be 16 teams from each region making the playoffs. It's now down to 12. And we also wanted to take a look at maybe not the biggest games of this upcoming football season in the Ohio Valley, but just put a spotlight on a few games that we think should be close and good games, not dissimilar to the spotlights we have in here that are incredibly bright and hot, I might add. But before we do that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Seth Stasky pointed out on Twitter just the other day, and that raised a lot of eyebrows when you realize that Wheeling Central graduate Braxton Billick has now been a part of 4 straight state championship teams. Count them, 4. Wheeling Post Baseball in 2024, Post 1 Baseball, Wheeling Central Basketball in the winter of 25, Wheeling Central Baseball this past summer, and Post 1 Baseball again in 2025, just recently. He's got a heck of a baseball future ahead of him. He's committed to West Liberty. He's going to play baseball for the Hilltoppers this upcoming spring, and we couldn't be more excited for him. And what an accomplishment it is for him to be a part of 4 straight championship teams like that. Some would say coincidence. He just happened to fall in the lap of 4 straight state title teams. And while there may be a tad bit of validity to that, the reality is guys like Braxton Billick are the reason you win state titles. From everything I've heard, he's a team-oriented guy. He's a guy that does everything right, does what he's asked to do by his coaches, by his teammates, and is an overall team-oriented player. You may hear some people talk about how baseball in Ohio is better than baseball in West Virginia at the high school level. 1, I don't even know why that's relevant. 2, it doesn't matter. You still got to go out there and swing the bat and run the bases. You still got to be a heck of a player. You still got to have really good competitive resolve. And so Braxton Billick, I don't think there's anything you can take away from this. He's been on an incredible run, and I expect incredible things from him for the Hilltoppers at West Liberty, playing baseball for West Liberty. And I think it's an incredible story, and I'm glad that Seth pointed this out, and we couldn't be more happy for guys like Braxton Billick, and we couldn't be more proud and excited to see what he's going to do for the Hilltoppers this upcoming season. Moving along, I first wanted to touch on the aesthetic changes, if that's the right way to put it. Harco Media hat. We've got the football signaling that football season is upon us. We've got the Hall of Fame game not too far away. The Harco Media hat, I think we're going to try to arrange something, and the folks above me in this entire organization may not like this, but I want to organize something where loyal fans and viewers of the show can get themselves some Harco Media or even some Hometown Huddle merch. We want to set something like that up. We want to get you guys involved. We also want to encourage you to like the video if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. We want you to give 5 stars on the podcast side if you're listening on iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We want you to do everything that you can. Hey, share the video, share the podcast. If you are listening and you like what you hear and you don't think I'm too crazy or insane, Share it with somebody who you think would be interested in high school sports talk in the Ohio Valley, because really, who amongst us is not interested in that, and who doesn't get fascinated when they dive into the weeds of high school athletics in the Ohio Valley, because there's a lot to dive into, and we will do that right now. The first patch of, I don't know why I'm continuing this analogy. The first thing we're going to talk about regarding upcoming high school athletics in the Valley is the OHSAA playoff format changing from 16 teams to 12 teams for 2025. First of all, in 1999 until 2019, only 8 teams per region made the playoffs in Ohio. I actually didn't think that was a bad number. I think that was a pretty solid spot to land on, a pretty balanced mark. And I thought if you were good enough, you would make the playoffs. If you weren't quite good enough, your schedule wasn't tough enough, your record wasn't good enough, then you'd get left out of the playoffs. But I will acknowledge that there were some 7-3 teams that got left out, disappointed with a 9 seed, maybe a 10 seed, maybe even some 6-4 teams with a lot of talent that could have done some damage in the postseason had they gotten in, but they also got disappointed just on the outside of that 8-team bracket. And so naturally, you think 12 is the next move, because you have some teams that are getting left out that you think could have done some damage or were deserving enough to be in the playoffs. And I want to take you back to 2020, early 2020, January, February. If you remember correctly, they actually voted on this, and they voted to expand the playoffs to 12 teams. And that was the next logical step. Well, then COVID happened, and everybody put on a mask, and we decided in Ohio that every single team in the state, 700 schools, were going to make the playoffs if they opted in. And that gave everybody an opportunity. They did it. I actually didn't quite mind this idea. They did it right in the middle of the season, so that if you lost your first playoff game, you could continue to play the remainder of your schedule. I thought that was kind of neat. My high school had an opportunity to do that. But everybody was allowed into the playoffs due to disparities when it came to scheduling and the amounts of games that teams were playing. And so they allowed everybody in, and the OHSAA then said, you know what? We are hearing from the coaches that we should expand this thing and allow more teams in. Once these regions have anywhere from 20 to 30 teams in each of these regions. And once you get to 16, that's a vast majority of teams in the region making the playoffs. And so they were like, let's do 16, because a number 16 seed definitely can upset a number 1 seed, subsequently win 5 more games and win a state championship. That's definitely possible. Has never happened. But they said that the coaches gave them good feedback. We all remember how much of we get reminded of this every late October, November, kind of the fiasco that is ticket sales, and you got to buy them online, and half the money is going to the OHSAA, and it really makes somebody who can walk and chew gum at the same time, it makes them take a step back and go like, the OHSAA is getting a little bit of that cash. They certainly don't mind it. And so it makes a lot more sense now why they would go from, we have 8 teams in our playoffs, we're going to have 12. Oh, wait, no, we have everybody because it's COVID, and we have this thing that we need to do to allow everybody in. I don't think that was wrong, by the way. But then they said, well, no, let's just go to 16 because we can make a lot of money off of these ticket sales. I'm not saying that was their only motivation behind doing it, but it's definitely insulting if they thought that they can convince folks like you and me that a number 16 seed, who on average last season was 4-6, could go on this run, defeat this number 1 seed who's probably 10-0, probably 2 hours away, probably has 3 times the amount of players on their roster. They thought they could beat that team and then go on and win 5 more games and win a state championship. I don't know about you, but I wasn't fooled. And I wasn't excited about this when it first happened. And a lot of schools we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. I wanted to point out this story about Marion Local. Last season, they were 10-0, number 1 seed, region 28, I believe, one of the Division 7 regions. And 3 separate teams opted out of playing Marion Local in the state playoffs. Those 3 teams combined for less wins than Marion Local had on their own. Those teams combined for 9 wins. Marion Local was 10-0 heading into the playoffs. I think it's a cold take, if that's a term. I don't think it's a hot take to say that Marion Local, although they're Division 7, they would come here to the Ohio Valley and handedly defeat a number of teams. they would do some damage here in the Ohio Valley, even though they're Division 7. I'll also provide you with the other side of that spectrum. I could throw a baseball to Harrison Central right now, and they're playing a Division 2 school from Akron this season, and I'll tell you what, they're not doing it because they think they're going to lose that game. So the point that I'm making is there are good teams at the top of every region and every division in the state of Ohio, and there are bad teams at the bottom of all of those divisions and regions, almost regardless of whatever the division classification is. And that just proves that a 16 seed doesn't have what it takes to defeat a number 1 seed. Well, Milan Edison beat Bellevue in 2021. They were 16. Bellevue was number 1. Yeah, and then what happened after that? What happened after that? They ended up losing to Perkins, last year's state runner-up, by the way, in Division 4. They ended up losing to Perkins 28-0 in their round 2 game. So sure, Cinderella story, they can defeat a number 1 seed, the only time it happened in this 4-year window, and they can, it's not a hot take to say that they had no shot in going on and winning 5 more games, which takes a toll on the high school body, by the way. They couldn't win 5 more games. They couldn't win 1 more game, and not a shot at them by any means, but it's just an anecdote of why the 16-team format was kind of a disaster from the start. And then you say, oh, they might not win. It's not about winning the state championship. Are you crazy? It's about the inclusivity, and it's about hanging a banner. They don't want to hang a banner. I'll tell you straight up. We didn't want to hang a banner. When we went, let's say 4-6, won our rivalry game on the last week of the season, and then had to go 2 hours away and get blasted by a number 1 seed. No, you'd much rather win your last game of the season against most likely your rival and feel good heading into winter workouts or basketball season or wrestling season. You don't want to hang a banner because you went 4-7. And once again, I use those numbers because the average team that was a 16 seed last year in Ohio across every division in every region was 4-6 on average. So all of that is to say, I didn't mean to get a little too fired up. Might be a little too caffeinated here. We're a very pro-caffeine show. But all of that is to say, I think 12 is the right number because you'll have some of those teams that, and look, you'll have a 5-5 team probably make it in as well. And we'll probably be able to say some of these same points, but I don't think it'll be as egregious as it has been with the 16-team playoff. So I think the OHSAA did the right thing. They did the right thing by changing it from 16 to 12. I didn't want it to sound like I was yelling at you. I didn't want it to sound like I was yelling at anybody at the OHSAA or any of those schools I mentioned. I just kind of got passionate about that story because it's just insane that we were doing things the way we were doing them. Anyway, I had to take a sip. I wanted to clear some things up regarding last week's show. I don't know if anybody thought that the term Mountain Dew country was derogatory in any way, but just in case, I wanted to clear that up. This is Mountain Dew. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can say that because they don't pay us to say that. This rhymes with fountain brew. I drink it because I am one of you. When I talk about Mountain Dew country, that's me. And I'll drink it till the cows come home. Cows are on a hill because the farms are on hills in West Virginia. Beautiful hills in West Virginia, the Appalachian Mountains. I'm one of you guys, so Mountain Dew country is definitely a term that is used in the most positive ways. It's got potassium, it's got sodium, it's got H2O. Sounds hydrating to me, and it's definitely got caffeine. And once again, for the second time in the last 5 minutes, we are a very pro-caffeine show. All right. Wanted to talk to you about some of the biggest games, or I wanted to shine the spotlight on some games in this upcoming 2025 season. I was at Pergolini's in Smithfield this past weekend. I talked to you about the wedding last week, and I was at the subsequent wedding reception this past weekend. I feel like I could pull a Theo Vaughn and do a whole this past weekend podcast with some of the things that went on. All great things, such a great time. Those folks do a great job. The Luna Blue downstairs, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce what the whole thing is called, but the pier in Smithfield, my Jefferson County folks will know what I'm talking about. If you're not holding your events there, I don't know what you're doing. You won't find better people. You won't find a better venue. Top of the line, across the board, great stuff. But I mentioned that because as somebody who was in the wedding, the wedding that caused me to miss the thriller of an OVAC game that Saturday, I had to give a speech at the reception. And I thought I did well, but I think at one point I kind of stumbled because in my head, I was thinking as I'm giving this speech, oh, wait a minute, Steubenville and Indian Valley play this season. And I spent the rest of my night thinking about that and looking into that and just getting super excited and stoked for this matchup that we get in week 2. That's what I want to talk to you first when it comes to big games in the Ohio Valley this season. I need to take a breath before I do so, though. Okay, we're gonna cut this up and put it on social media because we've done great numbers on there, and frankly, a lot of folks watch the 2-minute clips anyway. Week 2, Indian Valley at Steubenville. What do you think of when you think of this game? I think last year's Division 4 state champion at last year's Division 3 Region 11 regional runner-up. Big Red's only loss last year was to the eventual state champion in Division 3, Bishop Watterson. We've looked at some numbers. We have good reason to believe that this should be a close game, a very close game, single-digit margin potentially. And again, that's just us speculating. It was a close game 2 years ago in the Division 4 state playoffs. Big Red took a big lead, but then Indian Valley fought back and they fell by just a touchdown, 42-35. They had a running back go for Indian Valley, had a running back go for nearly 200 yards in that game. The same running back went for nearly 300 last year in the state title against Perkins, and the same one's going to be playing for Air Force next fall, and that's the same running back that's going to be carrying the rock for the Braves at Harding Stadium in week 2 this season, and that's Grady Kinsey. Dude ran all over a St. Clairsville team that was surprisingly deflated in the playoffs last year in their early exit. Kinsey's a guy that he's going to Air Force, and they don't take guys like you and me at running back. So Grady Kinsey's a great talent. Him behind that offensive line that the Braves have, and you couple that with the last impression you have of Big Red's defense, giving up 196 rushing yards to Zach Weber from Bishop Watterson in their playoff exit last year. You think that spells bad news for Steubenville defensively. Now, we're not sure. Indian Valley could have lost some production on the offensive line. Big Red could have improved on the defensive line. That's what those teams are doing right now, is trying to improve as we move into August. But it could be a high-scoring game. Steubenville's going to have to replace a lot of production. We've gotten familiar with the name Aiden Davis over the last few years, and it's, I think, going to take a while for some folks to realize, wait a minute, he's not even playing for Steubenville anymore. He's graduated and moved on. He accounted for 2,500 touchdowns. I'm sorry, that would be, 2,500 touchdowns. Pardon me, 2,500 yards and 26 touchdowns last year. Steubenville will be breaking in a new quarterback. We expect that to be Santino Haney. He's going to be a great basketball player as well. He's going to lead Big Red under center for the first time. So Steubenville with a new quarterback, some new pieces on offense. Week 2, they're going to still try to figure things out. Not that Steubenville is going to be in a spot where they don't know what to do. They seem to always know what they do. But Indian Valley, you get this feeling that this is kind of their shot. I'm not picking a side. I may have a lean, but I'm not picking these games. I'm just saying that Indian Valley got blown out by Steubenville in 22. They lost a close playoff game in 23. They didn't play last year, and now you feel like the way the chips are falling, this is Indian Valley's shot to kind of take over Harding Stadium and defeat Steubenville and kind of show the Ohio Valley, hey, we've got good football over here as well in a town that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. So we think Steubenville and Indian Valley are going to be one of the best games of the season in the Ohio Valley in 2025. A little parched. I'm not gonna take this many sips on subsequent shows. And I'm not gonna say that word so many times either. The next game that we wanted to take a look at is in week 4. Edison travels to Martins Ferry. The last time these two teams met was 2014. Both of those programs were in completely different positions, and they've effectively undergone makeovers, if you will. Effectively, 10 plus years ago, they've effectively never met. So it's kind of a first meeting type of game. You at least get that feeling. Last year, Edison, these teams were in the same region last year. Edison at 7-4. They finished 7-4. They were the 9 seed in Region 17. Martins Ferry finished 10-2. They were the 11 seed. Ferry leads the all-time series 8-1. Edison beat him in 2012 at Martins Ferry, but again, none of that's really relevant because none of those players are still on the teams today. So we are really going to be looking at this game on the field in Martins Ferry. I think both teams have a reasonable shot to go 3-0 heading into this game. Edison does have a tough game against Carrollton in week 1. They get Carrollton at home. And don't discount that Shenandoah game. Last year, Shenandoah pulled the upset and defeated Edison. I think it's unlikely, but if Edison comes into the game against Ferry at 1-2, I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure around that program. A first-year head coach as well, with Colopy stepping down and moving into a assistant role. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Edison if they're 1-2 heading into the Ferry game, and they're going to feel like they really need that game to save their season and get back on track. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they are probably 3-0, maybe 2-1 heading into the Martins Ferry game. We have good reason to believe, as do you, that Martins Ferry will be 3-0 heading into this game. So should be a great game. We've also done some numbers on this. Once again, we'd expect the margin to be single digits, so do with that what you will. But another thing that's intriguing about this game, not only the fact that they haven't met in so long, but also the fact that they're both similar programs as far as for a couple of reasons. I think their scheduling philosophies have been kind of similar over the last couple of years. Both teams usually have favorable schedules. I'm not going to say they're cakewalks or they're easy, because winning is not easy in anything. But they have favorable schedules that do them a couple favors. They both tend to have good records, especially recently at the end of the season. But neither one has gone super far into the playoffs recently either. So I think this game is huge. I think it would be even bigger if they were in the same region once again. But Martins Ferry actually dropped down to Division 6 this season, so we don't get that inter-regional aspect in this game. But still going to be a great game. It's going to feel like it's the first time that they've met because they haven't met in 11 years. And both teams have also undergone turnarounds in their program. Martins Ferry, the year before Justin Kropka got there, 1-9 in 2021. Now they're 10-4 this past season, and they made it to 2 playoff games. So they've turned around under the leadership of Justin Kropka. And Edison in 2019 winless, 0-10, and they are still remembering that 10-1 season that they had in 2022, 7-4 in each of the last 2 seasons. But you feel like this year could be their window to kind of, I don't want to say take that next step, but kind of get back to that caliber that they were in 2022 when they went 10-1. I think this is the year that Edison can kind of bank on and feel like they can feel confident in winning double-digit games, or at least having the opportunity to do so. J.D. Henderson is back. That's the quarterback there. He's back for his senior season. Hayden and Caden, that tandem will be back. Hayden Russell and Caden Russell. Matt Evans is going to carry the ball. He's back. Trevor Eisenachel, the senior wide receiver, is back. So Edison, they also have a tougher schedule than they normally have had over the last few years. They've got the Carrollton game. Of course, they've got Martins Ferry, as we're talking about, and they've got Indian Creek at the end of the year. But they've got more returning talent, and you'll see that Martins Ferry, they have a little bit of an easier schedule, but they need to replace a lot of talent. They lost their star tight end and defensive end, Alex Reese. He's now at Youngstown State. They lost Aiden Ludoff, their quarterback. Running back Tevin Williams is gone. And so Martins Ferry is going to have to replace a lot. I think by week 4, they're going to start to figure out who they are from an identity standpoint. And that coaching staff, as always, will have a good feel for what their talent is capable of. And I think Kropka will have them guys ready to go. But definitely an interesting game. Something's got to give. Once again, we think that the margin is single digits. Martins Ferry is going to have, they lost 7 seniors after this past season, but 3 of those seniors are guys I just mentioned, and they were really good. And Kropka's been on record saying that they're kind of the 3-headed monster of their team. So all of that out the window. They have a nucleus though coming back, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. They had 18 sophomores and 18 juniors last year, which will be 18 seniors and 18 juniors this year. That's 36 players that are upperclassmen on their roster. Some of the teams around here, are lucky to have 36 players on their roster by the end of the season anyway. So that's something that's kind of rare, and you think would provide Martins Ferry with not only depth but experience. And so once again, we expect that game to be very good. Both of these games should be exciting matchups in the Ohio Valley. Indian Valley at Steubenville, Edison at Martins Ferry. We have one more game to talk to you about. We really think that in week 3, Union Local traveling to Indian Creek could be one of the biggest games of the season. It was one of the best games of the season last year when Indian Creek went to Union Local and lost to the Jets for only the 3rd time in school history. 27-26 thriller. What more can you ask for? We think it's going to be a similar type of game this season. And I think both of these teams are similar in terms of their up and down sort of movement over the last, we'll call it 6-7 years, kind of oscillators of the Ohio Valley. You look at Union Local in 2019, that was year 2 for Coach Bernie Thompson, winless, 0 wins. Then in 2020, 2 wins, 5 wins, 5 wins in 22. Some would say 6, some would say 5. That's in the past. 23, 6 wins. 24, 9 wins. They had an incredible season last year, and they're looking to build on that. Obviously, you don't start at 9-3 when you trot your team out there in August, but you have things to look forward to, and you have confidence in your guys that they can go out and compete. Indian Creek, kind of similar when they've been coached by Andrew Connor, which feels like forever at this point. 1-9 in their worst years, 10-2 in their best year in 2019. Beat a good St. Clairsville team that season. You look at 2021, 1 win, and then 1 win the next year, and then 2 wins the next year. And then last year, boom, 8 wins in Indian Creek. That close loss to Union Local actually had a surprisingly good effort against St. Clairsville last year as well. They felt like they could beat St. Clairsville for the first time since 2019. Ultimately fell by, I think, like 2 touchdowns. But Indian Creek was very surprisingly good last season. I shouldn't say surprising, because I'm sure it wasn't a surprise to the folks in Wintersville. They know what they have, and they know what they're capable of. But from an outsider looking at it, from a casual Ohio Valley fan, I don't think anybody expected Indian Creek to jump from 2 wins to 8 wins. I think many folks thought they would improve, but 8 wins, an 8-3 season last year, very good for the Redskins. Once again, Indian Creek leads the all-time series 8-3. Last year was a thriller. Colby Carpenter, he's back at quarterback for Union Local. He had a great game. Perzanowski was pivotal in that effort. He's also back. And you think about Indian Creek and what they did in that game, in that 27-26 effort. A lot of their production came from Zion McGee, who is gone now. And Indian Creek's going to have to replace a lot. They're going to have to replace not only Zion McGee, but one of their tackles, Nyshawn White. They do have Luke McMillian back as a tackle. He'll be a senior this year, so that should provide some help on the offensive line for guys like Gavin Pownall to run behind, as well as Bruce Mazar. So Indian Creek has Ian Starkey back at quarterback. He's going to be a senior. So once again, this game just continues to get more intriguing. If you saw the social post I did a little bit earlier, actually would have been yesterday, the more you look into these games, the better they get. Like we said, Colby Carpenter probably going to lead Union Local onto the field. He got a lot of experience when Isaiah Tomalonis went down, and Brody Perzanowski's back, as we mentioned. They do lose Dre Saunders and Billy Shoemaker, so guys like Aiden Passage and Landon Beedling are going to have to step up at that wide receiver position, but they've got experience. They've got good experience, and they should be able to handle the load at receiver on the outside for Union Local this season. Now, what concerns me about Union Local is they do lose 3 seniors from their offensive line, but they've got 2 sophomores coming back that should help them out, and they've got incredible experience in 2024. So I think Union Local and Indian Creek, once again, similar kind of programs. You take any 2-year snapshot in we'll call it 20-year window, the last 20 years. Take a snapshot of any 2 years for both of those programs. They could have combined for 3 wins, or they could have combined for 16 or 17 wins. They're up and down. And I hope both of them are up this year just because I want everybody in the Ohio Valley. Mathematically, it's not impossible. I'm sorry, it is not possible. But I want everybody in the Valley to be good. I want Union Local to be good. I want Indian Creek to be good because I'm telling you about this game and I think it's going to be a good game. I definitely want it to be a good game, and I think it will be. The 3 games that we've talked about should be nothing short of spectacular. If they If they are, then all that does is provide you and I with more things to talk about. It allows you to jump in the comments and say, what were you talking about? Steubenville beat Indian Valley 42-14. You thought that was going to be a close game? And then I look like the fool, but that's okay. That's okay because sometimes you have to risk looking like a fool in conversation to have a really good conversation, and that's all we want around here is good conversations. We want you to contribute to the conversation as well. The reply section. I've got one more thing to talk about. We got a reply on one of our TikTok videos about the officiating in the OVAC All-Star game, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I was not in town. I was this right here, Mountain Dew country. If you're listening on podcast, I'm holding up the glass of Mountain Dew. I didn't get to see the entire game, and so I went back and looked at the winning play, the winning touchdown to Demir Mauder, and we've got some replies about the officiating in that game. And I will say, first of all, two sides to every coin. I heard a lot about that this past weekend. That's an inside thing, but two sides to every coin. Did the West Virginia player, while blocking downfield, maybe rip off the helmet of the Ohio player? Sure. Did the Ohio player also have his hands on the face mask of the West Virginia player? I think so. It was a tough angle, but I think he did. And I think it's a tough job for those officials. You're going to miss calls. Just like that 14-year-old's going to miss a block. It's the way it goes. And, I'd love to see every fan, and I'm not calling these fans who talk about officiating, I'm not calling them bad people. I'm just saying, have a little bit of nuance and think about the situation and try to go down there. If you were down there, nobody would think you called a perfect game either. I couldn't call a perfect game. I know that. Maybe people who are watching can call a perfect game, and maybe you would have seen some holding calls and you would have seen some of the things that you thought were egregious in certain games. But all of that is to say, we want you to be a part of the conversation. We want you to hit the replies on YouTube, on Facebook, on the TikTok, the social feeds, the Instagram, Twitter, all of those things that we're on. We want you to leave reviews on the podcast format. We want you to be as involved in this thing as I am and as we at Harco Media are. Frankly, because that's what it's all about is it's you and me sitting down talking high school sports in the Ohio Valley. I can't think of anything better than that. So we're certainly thrilled that you're here. While you're here, hit subscribe, hit like, do all those things that you're always asked to do in your everyday life with any kind of content that you watch. I talked at the very top of the show about the conversations we're going to have coming up before the season. Stay tuned for that. I'll have some announcements coming. We still haven't touched on Bellsville not having a high school anymore. We're in Madonna not having a football team this season, just this season. Is it going to last beyond this season? That's what we're going to discuss next time on Hometown Huddle. We've also got some other big games. I think Barnesville and Wheeling Central is a game of a lot of intrigue in the Ohio Valley. I think St. Clairsville and Wheeling Park is always a great game. Frankly, we don't have time to break them down tonight, but we will certainly talk about those games and many others. I think it was, I've got, look at this. If you're listening on the podcast format, I'm holding up this paper. We've got every game in the Ohio Valley listed here right in front of us. So what was I looking at? September 12th, East Liverpool and Beaver Local. I think could be a good game. That's to say that we have a lot of things to talk about, especially as the high school football season gets nearer and I wish we could feel the air cooling down. Frankly, it is not as I wipe the sweat off of my forehead. But we can't wait to see the leaves fall. We can't wait to see those lights turn on, and they almost, I don't know if they make a sound or not, but they almost look like they make a sound when they pop on and you kick that ball off. You can smell the funnel cakes from the concession stand. Bridgeport does a great job with their what do they call it? Their funnel fries, I believe. Phenomenal job. You hear the sounds of the pads popping and the whistles blowing. Nothing is better. And then when we get to mid-November, we'll say the same things about high school basketball. And you walk into that you walk into that hot, loud gymnasium from a cold, snowy evening, and it's really cinematic, and it's a great spectacle all across the Ohio Valley, all the sports. We're excited to break it down, and we will have much more coming for you on Hometown Huddle. That's tonight's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that we could talk about high school athletics this evening, this fine, beautiful Wednesday evening. Why is it beautiful? Because football season is near, and it's getting nearer every day, every second that passes. So for everybody at Hometown Huddle, I'm Drake Watson, going to stop rambling here, saying have a great night, have a great day whenever you choose to listen, and I'll talk to you again sometime very soon.